This is the K&F Concept NP-F970 battery. So I'm gonna unbox it quickly so that you know what comes in the box. So there's a warning leaflet and a user manual and the battery itself. And there's also a USB cable in there. And the connections are USB-C to USB-C. The battery type is lithium-ion and the battery weighs 338 grams and it has a capacity of 76.65 watt-hours with an output voltage of 7.3 volts. And it has a USB-A on this side with a plastic flap, and the USB-A port is output only and it provides between 4.7 volts and 5.25 volts at 2.1 amps. So the USB-A port only provides 2.1 amps because I know there's some USB-A ports that provide up to 3 amps, I think. And the other thing about the USB-A port is that it's output only, so you can't use the USB-A port to charge this battery itself, but you can use the USB-A port to charge other devices or run other devices. And it has a USB-C on this side, and the USB-C port supports USB power delivery up to 20 watts. So it can provide 5 volts at 3 amps or 9 volts at 2.22 amps or 12 volts at 1.67 amps. And the USB-C port is both input and output, unlike the USB-A port. So the USB-A port is output only, but the USB-C port is output and input. So you can use the USB-C port to actually charge this battery itself. So instead of using an NP-F battery charger, you can actually use the USB-C port on this battery itself to charge it. And on this side of the battery, there are 4 LEDs which indicate how charged the battery is. And there's a button here which says check. And if you press that button, it will show a number of LEDs turn on, and this represents how full this battery is. The main advantages of this battery is that it has a really large capacity at 76.65 watt-hours, and this is the largest capacity NP-F battery that I've come across, so 76.65 watt-hours. If you know of any NP-F batteries that have a larger capacity than this, then let me know. And the other advantages of this battery is that it has a USB-A port and a USB-C port, so it can function as a power bank. So aside from its NP-F battery compliance, it can just function like a normal USB power bank since it has a USB-C port and a USB-A port. So there's no need for a separate charger when using this battery. You can just charge it through the USB-C port and use it through the USB-C port, or use it as an NP-F battery as well. And the other advantage of this battery is that it has status LED indicators, so you can check how charged the battery is instead of relying on a device to tell you how charged it is. So you just press this button and the LEDs will light up. So in terms of disadvantages for this battery, it doesn't have any real disadvantages, but you could argue that if this battery didn't have the LEDs here, and if it also didn't have the USB-C port and USB-A port, then it could be made smaller and lighter, marginally. Maybe it would drop 20 or 30 grams at most. But that could be something that some people would prefer, to have a smaller and lighter battery, even if it's by a tiny amount. The USB-A port only provides 2.1 amps, because I know there's some USB-A ports that provide up to 3 amps, I think. So to compare this battery to other NP-F batteries, I have another NP-F battery here. And if you look at this one, it has 57.72 watt-hours. So you can see it has substantially less capacity. And it also doesn't have any status indicators or any USB ports, but it is slightly smaller and lighter. So this NP-F battery weighs 306 grams, whereas this one is 338 grams. But this one doesn't have USB ports, so it requires a charger for it. So another battery to compare this to, and this one does have a USB-A port and a USB-C port and status LED indicators. But if you look at the capacity of this one, it's 56.16 watt-hours. So again, substantially less capacity than the K&F Concept battery. And in terms of weight and size, they seem to be the same size exactly. But this one weighs 311 grams, whereas the K&F Concept one weighs 338 grams. So for around 20 or 30 grams more, you get around 20 more watt-hours of capacity. So you have to decide whether that's worth it or not. And obviously this one, because it has a larger capacity, it will be more expensive as well. So that's something to keep in mind. But I think it's worth getting the batteries with a larger capacity, even if they're more expensive, because then you carry less weight with you and you have the same amount of capacity to run your devices with, and you worry less about the battery running out and having to exchange batteries. Anyway, let me know if you have any questions about this battery or if you want me to carry out any tests with this battery. Also, let me know if you know of any NP-F970 battery that has a larger capacity than this one.